So be it, Jedi.
What's going on, guys? Back in another video. Approximately 1 year ago, I started collecting Hot Toys. So today, we're going to take a look at how it all started, my experiences thus far, my overall opinion, and what advice I would give to somebody who is considering collecting Hot Toys or just starting out. Like many collectors, I began my adult collecting journey with Funko Pops, vintage collection, some Lego, but I really didn't have a plan, so to speak. I knew of Hot Toys' existence. I would see YouTube videos that would pop up sometimes. I was aware of them. I just pretty much knew them as being really expensive. It wasn't until I saw the Clone Wars Darth Sidious or it was the Artisan Anakin announcement. Those two figures really caught my attention and got me a little bit more than interested. So no surprise when the Artisan Anakin figure went up for pre-order and the whole queue system and all that, I don't even think I was far enough in line to be able to secure it. But when I got to it, I saw its price and I was like, there's no way. This thing's almost $500. But luckily, they had the Clone Wars Anakin in stock and ironically enough, on sale. So after some consideration, I pulled the trigger. I was kind of worried that I would be disappointed because, of course, the Artisan head sculpt is perfect in my opinion. It's based on the prototype, it's immaculate. But when I got my Anakin figure, I was pretty pleased. And ever since then, I've been hooked. Well, it's not really that simple. When I first received my first Hot Toys figure, I thought I was just going to keep doing what I was doing, just buying miscellaneous things here and there. I don't want to say I got sticker shock, but wrapping your mind around spending $200+ on one thing, it's a bit of a change when you're used to buying $15, $20, $25 figures and toys here and there. But I soon realized that for me personally, I would always compare every new acquisition to that Hot Toys figure, and I'm just like, man, here's this Funko Pop that I'm not knocking on anything. If you collect Funko Pops or cheaper toy lines, I'm not acting like an elitist. But for me personally, I would look at that and I'm like, why would I spend this small amount of money relatively on multiple toys or collectibles when I could just hold on to that money a little bit longer and buy another Hot Toys figure? So that's essentially what I started doing. So what I've experienced and what I've learned spending a year in this hobby, spending time on YouTube, going back and watching figure reviews, spending time in live streams, you get a pretty good idea as to the general consensus on the hobby as a whole, certain figures, etc. Of course, you take away your own perspective, but for the most part, people just like cool shit. They like good, well-made, accurate figures. You do that, and pretty much people are happy. One thing I've noted that is sort of ironic is how fast things move in this hobby. Now, figures are announced, the hype is there for a week or two, people will talk about it, and then the next thing's announced, and so on, rinse, repeat. Figures are announced, figures are released, you're still waiting on them, and that's what's ironic is as fast as things move, you're still waiting a year and a half on average for your figures. To be honest, I haven't even been here long enough to see a figure go from announcement to release, and the first one that will be, well, should be, is the Clone Wars Darth Sidious, my most anticipated figure, my first pre-order essentially, and can't wait, super stoked. We all have our own personal figures that we're marking the days on our calendar because we just can't wait for them to arrive. But ultimately, you have to kind of come to the realization that this is a hobby that you're playing the long game. So patience is definitely a virtue. What would I tell someone who is brand new to the hobby? Well, I'm kind of brand new myself, but I guess I have a little bit of skin in the game. Now, I'm no expert. I don't claim to be. I don't really think I have any level of credibility beyond a small amount. So take this however you will. This is just subjective based on my opinion. That's it. But if I were to give someone who is brand new to the hobby or is thinking about becoming part of this community any advice, what would I tell them? You definitely want to buy a character that you truly love for your first figure. That may sound obvious, but you'd be surprised at how many times people just buy something because it's cool or it's cheap or it's on sale. For me personally, my first figure was my Clone Wars Anakin, as I just mentioned. I couldn't really imagine buying any other figure as my first figure before then, because Anakin Skywalker is my favorite character. Maybe he isn't my favorite version of that character. As I mentioned, I really like that Artisan or the Episode 3 version, but I settled, and ultimately I wasn't too disappointed. Now I only collect Star Wars figures because to me, Star Wars has pretty much been a part of my life, at least even in some peripheral way, since I can remember. Star Wars is what I love, it's what I know, it's my bread and butter. It's really the only IP that I'm willing to spend what is, on average, $300 per figure for a figure. Now, it's going to be a lot easier to control your money, to control your available space if you stick to only one IP. And I know I'm in the minority here when I say I only collect one thing, because from what I've seen, a lot of people like Marvel, DC, Star Wars, your one-offs, Terminator, Predator, what have you. So I'm really kind of unique in terms of only wanting to collect one thing. Regardless to that, I think it's pretty obvious that you wouldn't go and buy some character you really don't care about as your first figure. If your favorite character is Batman, I would probably do the research, try to find out which figure is the most modern and up to date and pretty much considered the best version. And if that fits the criteria for you, by all means, go ahead. The secondary market can be a dangerous place, not only in the sense of collecting backwards, because sometimes that's just inevitable. I've done it, you've probably done it. If there's a character you really want that you love that just may be your favorite character, you may have to go backwards and buy it on the secondary market. Depending on what that character is or what the figure is, there's a good chance you're going to pay a little bit more than retail for it. Now, there's a lot of stuff going for dirt cheap from what I've seen, even since, a year. All the Mandalorian figures are essentially not worth anything. All the Clone Wars figures, Anakin, Ahsoka, Darth Maul, they're going for sub 200 all day, less than what I paid for it brand new as my first figure. So there definitely is a lot of deals to be had on the secondary market. And that's what I mean is it's dangerous because it mostly depends on how it applies to you. If you're one that's always scouring eBay or Facebook Marketplace looking for that deal and you just can't not spend money, you're going to run into some problems. So I'd recommend you stick to a budget. I know we all say that and kind of disregard it when it comes to my favorite figure just got announced, or the figure I've been looking for, I found a good deal on it. But I think for the most part, if you try to have integrity for yourself, you kind of avoid running into a lot of financial problems. And that could be, I only buy one figure per month, only buy one figure per 2 months, per 6 months, X amount of figures per year. It doesn't matter. It's ultimately up to how much money you can allot to something we really are just blessed to be able to do to begin with, and how much space you have available to you. Self-control will be your best friend. One thing I do when I get a new figure, and this is just an example and kind of just what I try to practice, is I'll buy my figure. For example, my most recent acquisition was the second 501st Clone Trooper that I objectively didn't need. But once you buy your figure, it arrives, you unbox it, pose it up, put it in your display. Just try to milk the shit out of it. Just try to enjoy it for as long as you can until that next figure gets announced or your figure ships or whatever that may be. Just try to enjoy it to sustain yourself, to prevent you from getting back on eBay and looking for your next purchase. Because if you don't see it, you really aren't going to be as tempted by it. I would say try to have some sort of vision for your collection. Now I know visions change and sometimes we change our minds. I've done it. I've seen a figure be released and I initially didn't like it, or I shit on it and I was kind of critical. But then I later changed my mind and now that figure is one of my favorites. So we're not infallible. We're not immune to changing our minds or making even mistakes. But regardless to whether you want to admit it or not, we're all going to buy a figure or a couple figures that we think we love and that we think is just awesome and cool, or it's a FOMO figure and you're seeing everybody talking about how cool it is, or it's limited and you buy it just because you don't want to miss out. Well, a lot of the time those figures are going to be the ones you move on when space becomes an issue. We've all done it, so just something to consider. When it comes to pre-ordering figures, it's pretty self-explanatory what pre-ordering is. But my sort of rule of thumb is when a figure is announced, if you're not immediately, get that gut-wrenching feeling of excitement and you're going and checking to see if it's available for pre-order yet, if you can hurry up and secure it day one, you might want to sit on it for a little bit and think about it. Most recently for me, as an example, Hot Toys just announced Fives and Echo. Now, I love the Clone Wars. I love clones. Hell, half of my collection is pretty much clones. And I know these figures are highly desired and sought after. I know the Sideshow versions go for exponentially more than retail. But when I first saw these figures, I thought, cool. But I didn't get that feeling that I got when I first saw Thrawn announced, or when I'm going to feel when eventually Anakin from Revenge of the Sith is announced, because that's inevitable, right? So, although it was cool and I was glad to see it, after later consideration, I really just don't think I want to spend $600 on 2 clones, because at the end of the day, figures like that are cool don't always translate to need to have, or that are just going to be cherished in your collection. Now, this is just subjective. These figures may be grails to you, but for me personally, I think I'm going to pass, because my initial reaction wasn't need to have it. Where is it? It was cool, and I had to think about it. So that's just something you sort of learn along the way, maybe. As I mentioned earlier, take this for what it's worth. I don't claim to be an expert. This is just anecdotal and based on my experience throughout the year. This is something I've been looking forward to doing for a while now. Doesn't feel like I've been doing this for a year, but it's been fun. I mean, as you can see, I have a humble collection here, and I'm proud of it. I look at it probably more times than I should throughout the day, but it brings me joy, and I think that's what this is really all about. I mean, we're adults that spend way too much money on shit we don't need, but if it makes us happy, that sort of justifies it, because could be spending money on a lot worse things than Hot Toys figures. In closing, I just want to say this has been a very fun year. I'm looking forward to more. Looking forward to more figure announcements. Looking forward to them grails, those inevitabilities getting announced. Looking forward to my pre-orders getting here. As always, I love to know what you guys think. So feel free to share your thoughts down in the comments below. What was your first year of collecting Hot Toys like? How long have you even been collecting Hot Toys? I know there's some guys I watch that have been doing it for a long time. I'd love to know, if you're a veteran collector, what your perspective sort of is on the hobby. Did you take anything from this video? Did it leave any lasting impression on you? As always, your feedback means the most to me. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and maybe by this time next year, my perspective will be a little different. I'll have a little bit more experience and some more insightful thoughts to share. As always, thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope I see you on the next one.